Okay, so we're going to start here by cutting Cernet translucent clay into 5 different pieces. And Cernet can sometimes be a little crumbly. It depends on how old it is. So we're going to work it with our hands here. We're going to knead it. If you're having too much joint pain and this is difficult, you can soak it in warm water to soften it up. So after we've softened it and kneaded it, we're going to run it through our clay machine. If you don't have a clay machine, you can just roll it out into various sized flat pieces. So each piece we're going to color a different color. Now you can do whatever color you want. I've chose some earthy tones here in this tutorial, but any color will work, and this technique will create that banded agate look that it mimics real rock. It ends up looking really cool in the end, and you can use any color mica powder. So this is just mica powder. You can get it inexpensively on Amazon or Temu or wherever you shop. I will be creating an exclusive list for members only to show you everything that I personally use and like. So keep an eye out for that in the future. So I'm just doing various colors here. This is just kind of a light pearl color, and I don't care if the other color gets mixed in because we're going to run it through the machine again to actually color all of the clay to make it a very translucent light color. Now this does bake up a little bit darker than it looks, so don't let it fool you. So we've got our 5 pieces here. The last one is just plain. I didn't color it at all. And then we're going to take white alcohol ink and we're going to put a thick layer of white alcohol ink on one side of each of these pieces. Now, you can use white paint, but I much prefer alcohol ink because it's cleaner, it dries faster, it's not as sticky, and so that's why I opt for alcohol ink when I'm doing this. Now, what you're not going to see is that I do this twice. I do 2 coats of it. So I do one, let it dry. It only takes like maybe a minute or 2, especially if you have a blow dryer. And then I do another coat to make it nice and thick. So it'll be sure to show up, obviously, after it's worked with and baked. So now we have the dried pieces. Nice thick coat, and yet it's light enough that it looks natural. It looks like that natural calcium deposit that you get in rocks, and I'll show you that in the end once the pieces are baked. So you're going to flip them over because we're now going to color the other side. So flip them over, and then you can again use whatever colors you want. That's not the point here. The point in this tutorial is the process. I'm using Alloy ink by Tim Holtz, I believe it is. Can't forget to shake it. I love this brand. I love this ink. It's very smooth and fluid, and it really looks like liquid metal, and I just love it. So you'll see I'm coloring one side of each of these and distributing it evenly with my hands. Now, as you watch, you'll see how fast it dries because it starts to dry before I'm ever really even done with it. And so I just wanted you to see that in real time, how easy it is to work with and how quickly it dries. And I have learned in the time I've been doing this that it matters. Like the products you use matter. You can either add to your frustration and create long wait times, or you can use the right products and end up making your workflow a whole lot faster. So as you can see, as I go back and kind of try to spread that one more, it's not spreading because it's already dry. So that's about how fast this stuff dries. I just absolutely love it. So then we're going to, the next step is to roll the center piece. So you're going to start with the smallest and you're going to roll it. And then you're going to place that centerpiece into the next largest piece of clay. And you're going to roll that up. And you're just going to keep going with these layers. Now when you're doing this, you want to press quite firmly because sometimes that ink will leave a little bit of a powder and it'll maybe not want to adhere so well. So sometimes you can just like push a little harder, work it just a few extra times to make sure that those pieces stick together and won't come apart when you're cutting. So I made a mistake here. As you can see, I don't know how I did this. I totally spaced out as I was filming this video, and I didn't put the smaller piece in the inside. But see, this is really forgiving. It doesn't matter. So I just put it on the outside and rolled it out. And it's going to look fine in the end. So you're going to roll this out into like a snake-like tube. And then you're going to fold it back in on itself. And this creates a really varied pattern. I don't know why this makes such a big difference, but I've done it both ways where I've just sliced it and put it all together, and then I've done it this way. And for some reason, when you fold it back in on itself and then make your final cube, it ends up creating a much nicer, more aesthetically pleasing pattern. Now I'm going to use my little acrylic tool here. I literally got this at the dollar store. It's like a stamp block, I believe they're called. But they work really well for this because you need to make that into a square. It makes it a lot easier to assemble your pieces later if it's square versus round or whatever. So that's why I like to make my cube round. So final result here with the cube, that's always a fun reveal, that first slice. Now you're going to slice this, make sure your slices are even. It's going to make it a lot easier when you're rolling it out and your pattern more consistent. And I never use the end pieces. So these little end pieces kind of end up being ugly, so I set them aside. Don't throw them away. We're going to use our scraps later for sure. So I'm going to make another video on that, showing you how to use scraps and make a whole new look out of the same clay that you've been using. So now we're going to assemble these. I like to offset them. That just makes me happy because it makes the pattern look a little bit more organic. So bump them up in there nice and tight next to each other. And then we're going to roll it out by hand. The first step is rolling by hand with your clay roller. Now, if you don't have a clay machine, you can just keep rolling it out by hand and finish it that way. I'm running this through my clay machine. That's part of the reason I use mica and alcohol ink, is because it dries, like actually dry and not sticky. If you start using paints and stuff like that, it tends to be a little stickier. So here you can see I've ran it through my machine. So you've got this nice, somewhat thin slab, so it's still translucent. You can see the light behind it. And often I'll do this check to make sure that you can still see light coming through it before I cut it. And then as I work, I like to just keep things kind of uniform, and often I'll want a clean edge because I'll be using like an open bezel or something where I want it to be straight. So I've just gotten in the habit of cutting the edges off of my slab. You don't have to. It's not an essential thing. But again, always keep those scraps because we're going to reuse them later in one of my next videos. And you're going to be shocked at how different it ends up looking. All right, so just flatten it and then cut it. I love using my little block for my cutting tools as well. I've learned over the years, getting good cutters, good sharp cutters makes a huge difference to it. Saves you a lot of work sanding later. You don't want to spend your life sanding. And so the less sanding, the better, for sure. Sanding is my least favorite part of this, but I've learned to try to appreciate every step, even the tedious details. All right, so you can see I've finished cutting my slab into the shapes I want. Do the pull. My pulls are never clean because some pulls that you see online that are just so perfect and clean. It's like, is that real life? No, no, that's not real life. It depends on the kind of clay you use, your cutter shape, all that. But the translucent clay with this technique often pulls off in various pieces. That's totally normal. You haven't done anything wrong at all if it comes off in multiple pieces, I promise. Just make sure you don't leave fingerprints as you're doing that. I'll often use a tool. If I can't get them out, I'll just use a small tool so I don't get a fingernail print in there, which I still do. It just takes some finesse. All right, so they went in the oven, they're out of the oven, and they're hot. So the first step is to water bath them. So with the translucent clay, if you put your translucent clay directly into a water bath when your pieces are still hot, that increases the translucency of the final product. And I don't know why I could not explain it to you on a scientific level. My husband probably could, but I can't. But it works. So I just take them out, dry them with a paper towel. Often this is step one. This will be day one. Like I'll make a big batch, leave them out to dry overnight, but you can just pat them down and dry them off if you want to, and continue to work. Just make sure they're thoroughly dry before you go on to the next step. All right, so you can see now I have my sanded pieces here, and I'm going to show you the light that can pass through them. And you see those bands, so that is what we want in our final product to make it look like real rock. We want it to be translucent, and we want it to look like natural mineral deposits that actually form in agates and rocks. And then once you put the resin on, those become even more clear and more defined. I love that transformation once you do that final step of resining. It really makes them pop. Now, if you need more help with resining, I'll probably be posting more videos about resining techniques later on. But for now, here's the finished product. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I enjoyed making it for you. Please follow me, subscribe, do all that good stuff so we can keep learning together. Thanks so much.